The U.S. House passes legislation to increase the debt limit for Chapter 12 bankruptcy eligibility to $10 million. Now, the bill is now in the Senate, and action is anticipated before recess on Thursday. Joining us now is Roger McEowen with the Washburn University School of Law. Thanks for joining us, Roger. And for those who are unfamiliar, let's start with what Chapter 12 is and why it's important to farmers.
Well, good to be with you, Christina. In fact, Chapter 12 was enacted at the height of the 1980s farm debt crisis. It went into effect in 1986 at that point in time, and it's just for those people that meet the definition of a family farmer. And to do that, you have to have most of your income come from farming. You have to have most of your debt associated with farm operations, and you cannot have an aggregate debt, as you mentioned, that exceeds right now about $4.4 million. And what this bill does is take that to $10 million, and it's absolutely, at least in my view, critical that that happens because debt loads have increased. I was listening to your stories that you were running at the top of the hour, and you had a story on the amount of debt in agriculture, and it's gone up substantially. And that $4.4 million mark is barring a number of farmers from filing Chapter 12.
And, talk a little bit more about that. What kind of problems will a farmer face if they're not eligible for Chapter 12?
Well, some would say on the other side of the aisle, well, you could file a Chapter 11 and reorganize your debt that way. That's not a liquidation chapter of the bankruptcy code, and that much is true. But Chapter 12 is specifically tailored to the specific needs of farmers, and one of those is that was added in 2005, actually, and that is you can take taxes associated with income that's triggered by sale of assets. For example, if you have to downsize your operation, so you sell off some machinery, sell off a tract of land, well, that's going to trigger tax, both capital gain and ordinary income items, and due to recapture. And what Chapter 12 allows you to do is move the IRS from first position, having absolute priority, you're going to get paid in first above all other creditors, paid in full. You move them to the back of the line, and you treat them as a general unsecured creditor. And that is very, very important for a farmer to be able to do. And that's the primary reason that we want to get farmers in a Chapter 12. There are other reasons, but that's the big one. It's just very, very favorable to farm debtors.
Increasing that debt limit to $10 million, that's significant. Why does that debt limit need to increase so substantially?
Well, when Chapter 12 was originally enacted in 1986, the debt limit was $1.5 million, and it's been adjusted for inflation since then, and so it's sitting at just slightly higher than $4.4 million. At the time of enactment, with that level at $1.5 million, it was estimated that 86% of all farmers could qualify for Chapter 12 if they needed to. That percentage is far lower than that right now. In other words, there are many more farmers that have debt that has grown to an extent that exceeds the rate of inflation. And at $10 million, we're back on par with that 86% number that was there at the time of enactment in 1986. That's why it seems big, but that's why it's at $10 million, is to get us back to where we were, to help farmers be able to right-size their operations and be eligible for Chapter 12. It just puts us back to where we were at 86.
All right, Roger, if you could just bring us up to speed on where that legislation is now in the Senate and what interested farmers should do.
It cleared the House last week, as you mentioned, and it's sitting there in the Senate, and it looks like it's going to go probably today. Might get voted on today, but definitely by Wednesday, because the Senate recesses after Wednesday. And interested farmers, this is now the time to contact your senators if you deem that's something that you want to do, probably by email, and let them know how you feel with respect to this legislation. We've got 3 key senators to watch. I would say that Senator Durbin out of Illinois is the key one. If they can get him convinced that this is a good idea, then it probably will make it through the Senate.
All right. Thank you so much. Always valuable information. Roger McEowen with the Washburn University School of Law. Appreciate you joining us today.